You're listening to the Vetted VA podcast, Your Journey Home. Nathan Nottingham is your host today, and he'll be chatting with Michael Wolff.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Vetted VA podcast, Your Journey Home. And we are in our series where we're shining a light on the mortgage and real estate professionals that are part of Vetted VA. You'll see them on vettedva.com on the maps. You'll see them in the Facebook groups. You'll see them on TikTok engaging. You'll see them around just teaching, and they teach a lot. So with me today is Michael Wolff, and he is coming to us from North Carolina. A few years ago, I watched him take that trip. He went from California to North Carolina, like all the way over. And man, what was like, I think I remember the first spring, Michael, you're like, it rained so much. It's such a sudden downpour.
Yeah, no, it was when we were looking at houses, we were still living in Los Angeles, and it was, I don't know, we closed in August. So our realtor was, doing, FaceTime, whatever, when looking at houses.
Yeah.
We put a lot of faith in her. And almost every time she was looking at houses, she'd be like, okay, I got to call you back. The rain started coming down. And then 10 minutes later, back on the call. Then 5 minutes later, oh, hold on, I can't hear you. It is a storm. I'm like, okay, what the hell's going on? Then we moved out here, and yeah, it's accurate. It just starts sometimes during the rainy season. It'll just start raining out of the blue, and then 10 minutes late, like a storm. You see like the black clouds, everything coming in, and then 10 minutes later, it's like perfect day out. And it can happen more than once a day. But yeah, the rain here is it's a bit ridiculous, but I like it. I like the rain,
Yeah.
Coming from LA, which
I like it more. Like living in Texas, I've started experiencing that too, to some degree, right? You have a rainstorm comes in for a couple hours and it just dumps buckets, and then it's gone and you're sunny again for a while. And growing up in the Northwest in Oregon, man, from October through March, it was just dreary and gray, and it would just rain. It doesn't really rain on you as much as just mists continually and just without stop. So, but coming out of LA, even, man, that had to be even more shocking from that area.
Well, I mean, you see what's going on there right now, just from being so dry.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
the whole place is burned down.
Yeah, needs to get wet. Needs to get rained on bad. Well, man, I appreciate you making time to be on this call with me. I want to talk a little bit about Michael Wolff, the man, the myth, the legend, and where you come from. Like, how'd you get started in lending, and why mortgages?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think anyone grows up and says they want to be a lender, I just kind of fell into it, my background, I went to school for engineering, so I was doing a lot of math and sciencey stuff. That's what I was good at. And then I was around, I'm dating myself, but the .com bubble, I was working in IT, and like every company was just shutting down. So I was just kind of in between things. I play music, so I was playing in a band. So we actually had a good time to travel and tour. I was getting a severance pay. I was getting unemployment. I was in my early 20s. So I'm like, this is amazing. So yeah, so that was a great time. I just had no responsibilities, and I was getting paid and to travel. Then came back. I ended up working at a restaurant. I took it over. I became the manager. I'll try and keep it short, but I became the manager of this restaurant, helped them like double their sales, and then they sold it. And then they gave me like $1,000 as a thank you. So they're like, okay. So I took just some job, just something. And we're doing like auto leasing, and we had clients, and we never verified income, and I would see their numbers. I'm like, how these guys are idiots. Like, they can't even spell, and they're making like, it was like a lot back then, like $10,000, $15,000 a month. I'm like, what do you guys do? Yeah. And I had no idea what a mortgage was. It's just something you just don't know. So I was like, I can do that, because I was at a time where it's like, okay, I should make some money in my life. So I went to my first interview. One of the clients set me up, and I totally bombed it because I didn't prep at all. It was like a subprime lender, and I didn't know what subprime was. I thought it was below prime, so it's good. It's like less than prime, like it's a low rate, So that didn't go over so well. Then I ended up getting a second interview with a different branch, and then they hired me. And that was a little over 20 years ago. and
Yeah.
it was a terrible company, but I really liked what I did. They weren't about helping people, but I was. And one of
Hmm.
the things that I picked up on right away that carries over to me now is there are a lot, the average person, even educated people, like my parents, my mom has a double master's. They both went to college. She's a teacher, pretty smart people. And when I learned about mortgages and I started talking to my family about what I do, I saw what
Hmm.
they had, and I was like, they have a terrible loan, right? And I'm like,
Oh,
so
yeah.
these are educated people who just don't have you know they don't know about mortgages, they don't have the financial education, whatever, but they just think it's work for them, but they didn't know that there's a lot better, or what they did is probably not the best thing. So back then I was like, okay, so if someone like that can be taken advantage of by a lender, I can imagine
Hmm.
people that are even less savvy, they're being put through the ringer, so that I take that with me today, where I just do the right thing with my clients, because I know that it could, because I'm not a jerk, to my clients at least. But if you are the kind of person that takes advantage of people, it will come out, and it'll be a very short-lived
Yeah.
career.
Yeah.
So long
No,
story
that's
short,
100% correct.
that's how I got here.
So you went from subprime. It doesn't make you a bad guy. It's how you got in the industry. You learned a lot. You wanted to serve people better, and then realized, okay, wait, hold up. Like
Yeah.
I need to probably get myself straight here. How'd you survive? Let's see, 20 years. How'd you end up surviving kind of what we see as the crash or the downturn? What was that? What was that drive for you?
Yeah, the first, 2008. Yeah, that was pretty
Hmm.
bad. I mean, it's not like I don't know. People are saying like what's been happening the last year or two, but it was worse. But I don't think it was worse at all. Because
No.
back then, like lenders were just shutting down left and right. There's nowhere to send loans. Nobody was qualifying because they lost jobs. So it was
Hmm.
just really lean, for about a year until things picked up again. So I was
Yeah.
still relatively new to the industry. I only worked for the subprime lender for a few months, and then one day I just woke up and I just said, I'm not going back there, and I
Hmm.
and I didn't. Uh, and then I took a position with a broker. Wasn't a great broker. So a few months after that, um, I started working for an independent broker. So this guy just was just one guy, and he had maybe two LOs, and we're just
Yeah.
remote. And within a few months, I got my own broker license. So from entering the industry, about a year maybe, I had my own broker license. And as soon as I got my broker license, he's like, "All right, you're on your own now." So then
Uh,
from there, I was pretty much on my own completely until a couple of years ago.
wow. Yeah. You You mentioned something. I'm gonna go back to it just because you were in a band and you toured,
Yeah.
and I love hearing this story. Like, what kind of music did you guys play?
Um, it was without, I mean, rock and roll, punk rock, post hardcore. I don't know. If you heard it now, probably say it was emo compared to what the kids are saying emo is these days.
Right?
Yeah, it was just kind of like, I don't know, like a bunch of kids that we listened to, like indie rock, punk rock, hardcore, and just kind of put it together. So
Dude, I love that.
yeah,
See, it's like it's little things like that when people call you and like you're my loan officer, you control the money. It's like, well, yeah, but I've got other hobbies. I do other stuff. Like
yeah,
I've got a background.
yeah.
Like
I know
music is a big part of your life.
it was more than it is now, but it's never
Yeah.
goes away, and I still listen to the
No.
same music I did 20 years ago, which I don't know if that's you know sad or not, but
Look, it goes on repeat. You gotta spin it at some point. Hey, tell me about this though. I'm kind of curious on your perspective. You find out about how'd you get into veteran lending, VA lending specifically? What was that kind of aha moment for you, or how'd you fall into that?
probably when I met Christopher Griffith,
Hmm.
because before, like being in LA, there's not a whole lot of veterans in LA. I mean, there's a lot of military in California, but in the Los Angeles area, there's the nearest base is not that close, so it never
Yeah.
really came up. I had maybe one or two streamlined refinances, but it wasn't like no one's PCSing to their It's a high
Right.
priced area, so no one's really living there. And been doing this for a while and work. I mean, I don't know what my percentages, but probably more than half of my clients are military at this point. But
Hmm.
a lot of them, they retire or separate, they're not going to high priced areas. So just didn't have it in LA. So when I met Christopher, he was one of the first brokers I met. When this whole brokers were better, AIM, whatever brawl came together, and he's a Marine, and he was telling me about what he envisioned things, and I didn't no idea that vets were being taken advantage of, and that there's this whole you know I don't know what you call it, but some of these big lenders that just prey on veterans. I didn't even know that it was a thing. Yeah, I know lenders
Mm.
absolutely take advantage of people, but I didn't know it was so institutionalized. So,
Got it. Yeah.
so I'm like he knows what he's talking about. Like he's got a mission, and you meet people who are focused, that kind of attracts you to kind of do what they're doing, and just kind of
Hmm.
let them lead the way and, find out, I wouldn't say purpose, but like, hey, these people need help, right? And I'm gonna do what I can to help out.
So you meet and you talk about it, and then you're like, "Yeah, I'll join the group and start the testing process." What
Well,
was that? How was that for you?
well, when I met him, this is before it was even a Facebook group. So,
Yeah.
so there wasn't even a group yet. He was just talking about, he wanted to make veterans a protected class, and he had these big ideas. And I'm like, okay, that's cool too, I guess, right? But then there was a Facebook group, and it was mostly Chris, you know, doing most of the moderating, I guess you can call it back then. It was kind of the wild, wild west.
Yep.
Like every once in a while, I'll see like Facebook remind you, here's a post from 7 years ago, and you look it up, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like, okay, well, that would not get through today. It's clear solicitation. It would not me, but like you'll see like something I commented on, whatever. So I don't know. I mean, I was in the group early on. I was helping out when I could. I was still learning VA loans myself.
Hmm.
And then it became, all right, we're going to buckle down. Everyone's going to test. We're going to get moderators. And I was not the first group, but I think I was one of the first couple of tranches of people asked to be in. I was just kind of waiting for that
Yes, you
call.
were.
And I think
Yep.
I got a call at like 5 a.m. one day, and it was Chris. I was like, okay, I got to answer this call. Yeah. But then we just took the test, and I'm a pretty intelligent guy, so I was like, I can just wing it, and I failed the first time because I just wasn't prepared for how much focus it took to get through it. And then that was it. And then I was like, okay, this is what I got to do. But yeah, the testing was eye opening. It was very helpful to just learn more about the product, and know where to find the information. But there was things in there that I just didn't even know and probably haven't come across yet because there's so much to it. But it was a great introduction to VA lending. So, a lot of
Yeah.
experience with lending, not so much VA, and that just opened up my eyes to the guidelines, which were a bit unique compared to any of the other loans.
So you so you start processing through that just basically with a willingness. You were invited in, and a willingness just to serve and learn. I've always found you extremely inquisitive, extremely wanting to know like what's going on. And I didn't know you had an engineer background. That's never come up in our conversations previously. So that actually answers a little bit of that for me. Like you've got a very analytical structure to you.
Yeah.
So how do you take that learning, and now you say you're roughly like 50% VA clients? That's a big change in 5 years. So like how do you utilize what you learn into how you serve and how you train and teach?
Um, well, mostly being able to help out borrowers who have been told no by other lenders, or given wrong information, because I have that information and that experience. So I was able to help people into homes who didn't think they could or were told no. Like even very recently, it was very complicated because I don't even know how to say it, but this guy just his credit was fine. The scores are just low.
Mhm.
He just had a lot of debt.
Mm.
But he was told by one lender, "We got to do this. We got to get you through this program." Another lend, like Zillow Home Loan, said, "You got to do this, and then we'll help you." And so I'm like, "No, dude, like you're good now. but we're still going to rehab your credit because we're going to save you some money.
Yeah.
So, and we were better priced, any broker was like, even if your score's 610, we're still cheaper than these other people. And if we do this, this, and this, we're going to save you some money. So not only is I able to help them get through because they were under contract, because they were told by big unnamed lender, like, hey, you're good to go now until contract. Surprise, surprise. Oh, you don't actually qualify because you still got to do this stuff. It's like, no, you can't fix your credit when you have 30 days, to close, but we were able to save it and save them like several $1,000s, just because, the VA loan, we knew the guidelines and we know like, hey, you don't need the best score to qualify. And that's not, a standalone case. It's very common, that people come to us and say, I was told I can't do it because I had a bankruptcy, or, I had another home that was, I did a short sale a couple years ago, or, anything like that. So we're able just to educate the realtors and the homeowners that, like, you still can qualify. You may need to do a couple things, but there's no. It's like, hey, we may need to just fix a couple things and you should be fine. Or maybe you're fine as is. Like the most dramatic one is I had a client who had a 514 credit score.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much for every other loan product is an instant no. Like I don't even need to look at your paperwork, it's just you're not going to get a loan right now. Like we'll look at your credit and see how you can fix it. But VA were able to get it done. And he even had a couple of late payments on credit cards within the last 12 months. So even that, the score alone, the credit profile, even some lenders, even VA loans with some lenders would say no. But just knowing what the underwriters are looking for, knowing what makes them feel comfortable, we're able to position it to show that it wasn't an ongoing issue, how things have been, the situation was rectified, it's not going to happen again, how their whole life has been turned around, and we're able to help them get their first home without a down payment. And that's a big win. And that comes from, just knowing the guidelines and how the loan works.
That's right. Troubleshooting those guidelines. Let's take that from your perspective. You're the first engineer I've talked to on these interviews, right? That's come from that perspective. How do you apply it? Like, what's your troubleshooting mechanism then to argue for the benefit of the consumer from the guidelines?
So that, okay, it's funny because that comes into play not just with the underwriters, but sometimes with the VA directly when you're trying to do like a reconsideration of value, or like usually the ROV is probably the most common because NPR is kind of a black and white sometimes. But a lot of times, the most success I've had was just writing out drawn out arguments that maybe would confuse them a little bit, but it makes sense. And that tends to get things done, where logically it makes sense, and it's hard for them to say no, So I just kind of make it a little complicated, trying to draw, just connect things together, like because of this, because of that, then we should do this, just kind of like, I don't know, like Johnny Cochran in the courtroom, like you must have quit because of this. Doesn't make sense, but it does make sense. I don't know. I can't really explain it well, but it's just being kind of I don't know, just putting the right words together.
Well, I think like let's light up the structure point on what you're saying, which is what you said kind of without saying it directly is if you can make the most logical argument utilizing the handbook, the 26.7, the
Yeah.
Ginnie Mae chapter 24, which is the reselling guide,
Mhm.
the any of the circulars, if you can make that argument logically from point A to point B,
Mhm.
then there really is no reason the way the VA loan is written and brought into by congressional oversight. The reason it's a product through congressional and legislative action, they really can't say no because you're not asking to violate. You're saying, no, your regulations or your handbook does this to this to this to this to this.
Yeah.
That's why it's a yes. It's like, it seems to be like, if you can do that, and that's what I want people to hear from you and take away from this call is if it doesn't say no directly and you can make a logical connection from point A to point whatever,
Yeah.
call it T,
Mhm.
then you can a lot of times get the approval from the RLC. And if the RLC gives you a document and says, yes, 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 we agree, we approve, like this is good to go. When you take that to the underwriter, here's the thing that people don't understand. An underwriter is writing a loan that can be resold in the secondary market, but they are also subject to audits by the VA. They will get audited on the loans they write. It's a random selection process. And if they get dinged for bad loans, that goes on their permanent record. The underwriters have a permanent record
Mhm.
when they're lap star underwriters with the VA. And
Right.
so a lot of times they're cautious because of their permanent record, but they're also cautious that the examination or the audit doesn't make the company have to buy back the loan from the secondary market. There's risk, right? And so the RLC's letter, when well argued, and the RLC says, yes, we agree with you, go ahead and do that. That's a get out of jail free card
Mhm.
for the underwriters. They
Right.
get to actually show the email and go, no, no, no. The reason we made the decision is because y'all said this. Like they get to point to the RLC's email,
Yeah.
and it's a beautiful thing. So like just being able to kind of just being able to walk through that process, I think is such an amazing skill set to have.
Yeah, it's not even just the RLC, but sometimes maybe just putting the words and the logic together for the underwriter so it makes sense for
Yeah.
them. Then they can say, this is why we did it. And I think if they
Mhm.
have sound reasoning, it's less of a, as long as there's no violation,
Right.
clear violation, it's just a sound reasoning. And when I was in college, I did all the pre med stuff because I thought that was going to be a thing.
Hmm.
And this is kind of, gets a look sometimes, but my favorite class, almost one of my favorite college classes, was organic chemistry. I took it one summer, right? So it's like pretty,
Hmm.
like everyone's like, that's the hardest class for pre med, but I love that class. And the reason why is it was a lot of problem solving.
Yeah.
You have, you did chemistry, right? Weren't you? I thought you were, no.
No, no, I was
But,
a music / communications major. I
and I
liked
knew you did
chemistry,
music.
but I hated the math.
I know you're a bass player. I thought you did who was in chemistry? I don't know, but a lot of it's like you have this compound, and how do you get to this compound? So how do you
Yes. Yeah.
fill
Yeah.
in the steps in between? Or you have this compound and you mix it with this to get this, and then how do you get to that? Or reverse engineer the whole thing. So
Hmm.
I like to see like all the steps in the big picture and try and see how it all fits together. That's fun for me. I even spend too much time sometimes on files, just seeing all the options and figuring it all out, even when I may not have to, just because I just have to.
You know, that's a great take too. That I think we could share on here that people would love to hear about is that every file, although I think people think that it's like you have like an iPhone. The iPhone comes out, you have that option, you have maybe 3 variations of that option this year, and that's all you got to sell. And that's not what we do.
Mhm.
When it really comes down to it's puzzle building as much and problem solving um, as much as just it is like a sales tactic. So I don't know, but do you play board games or group games? Do you play any like
I've played shoots and ladders from time to time.
shoots and ladders?
Yeah.
There's these yeah, I like playing these cooperative or somewhat cooperative like card building, deck building games.
Mhm.
I find those to be really fascinating because every time you sit down on that game board, the variations change. I'm playing the same game. I'm making a VA loan. But every time I sit down, I get a different deck or a different hand of cards, and I literally have to strategize around how to make that card, that hand work for the objective. And I
Exactly.
think it's such a great analogy for what we do.
No, it is, and it all starts with you get the file. Like we have to get all the information. That's why when someone says, "Can I just give you my social and just you can tell me what my options are? Can I just give you a pay stub?" It's like no, because I mean I wish it was that easy.
Yeah.
And sorry, but I do need to see all of your income stuff and I don't need a hard credit check. A soft is fine, but I do need all the information. Otherwise, I'm playing half blind. To see what's going on. Because it is like a game. You have to see all the pieces and see where they all fit, and then see how you can
Hmm.
get from point A to point B.
Hmm.
And just a lot of different scenarios, even within one loan type, even just a VA loan. Sometimes it's like just trying to get the number, like if the income is tight or the residual is tight. There's different ways to play with things and try and get it to work. So it's not so cut and dry. You know, That's why whenever someone says, "Yeah, I went to this online lender and they ran my credit and I have a pre-approval letter," it's like, "Oh, did
Hmm.
you send them your tax return? Did you give them a pay stub?" Like, nope. Like, you didn't give them anything. They gave, like, how do they know based on what? Like, you told them. Like, very recently,
Yep.
wasn't VA, but one of my realtors, she said, "Hey, this someone came to her and they had a pre-approval letter for $800,000, and you want to look at houses, right? And realtors are going to show houses, but it's a schlep, and they're not going to tell people no if it's a small
Right.
price, but they want to make sure like you can actually buy this because I'm not here just to give you a tour, right? No one is. You're not going to go
Right.
to a restaurant and taste the food just because you want to see what it tastes like without buying it.
Yeah.
So I talked to the client. The lender that pre-approved her ran her credit, and that's it. Only the credit. And as far as the job, she just finished working some kind of a temp job. She's like, "Oh yeah, it
Oh
didn't work
boy.
out," and she had a new job starting the next week, getting paid hourly, working for like FedEx as like a package carrier or whatever, package
Oh
handler.
man.
So I looked
Yeah.
it up. It's like a $15 an hour job. So I mean, she probably can buy a house, but not an $800,000 house. Uh,
Right.
so this lender said, "Go shop for houses, put in offers." And the worst thing about North Carolina for that situation is you have to give a due diligence deposit with your contracts, right? Well, I mean, a realtor should not write an offer unless they know for sure that they're legit, but you give a due diligence with your contract, and that's written to the seller. So if they accept your offer, you give them a check that they keep, whether the loan closes or not. So that's just money on the line. And, you know, it happens more often than not that people lose their initial deposits because their loan pre approval was just bupkis.
Great use of that term. Thank you. Exactly. It's funny. Like I've talked to some agents and they come in and they're like, "Look, man, if it has a certain name across the top as a pre-approval, we just don't even accept it. They just won't even take people out. They'll say, like, I'm sorry, like
Yeah.
here's what's going to happen," and they can tell them every horror story under the sun. It's funny. Like you can't, as much as we have people out there or big companies say press button get mortgage, you just can't do that. There's so many steps. Like it's about a game. So what is a tip, what is a great best practice that you could share to, like, hey, I want to get the mortgage, I'd love to press the button, like, prep me, what do I need to be ready for?
Well, if the lender is not asking for your financial documents, that's a red flag right there,
Yeah.
right? Like, and I tell people this analogy, like, if you have some kind of medical ailment, whatever it is, your doctor is going to want to see you before they give you a prescription for anything. Like, they're not going to, let me give you a prescription and you know what, take it for a week and then come in because that could kill you. The wrong
Right.
treatment could kill you. You're not going to die buying a house, but you could, lose a lot of time, headache, heartache, money. So yeah, I mean, if it's that much of an inconvenience to send someone your pay stubs and your bank statements, maybe you shouldn't own a house. If the lender doesn't ask for that paperwork, then are they really doing their job? You know, because they're not doing their job. They make it look like it's super easy. And in all fairness, there are some files that you don't need everything. Like, I just know, like, oh, you make $1 million a
Yeah.
year W-2, you have 800 FICO score, no debt, and you want to buy a $200,000 first time buyer, like, yeah, all day long. Like, I don't even need, here, I'll personally guarantee
Yep.
your pre-approval. But
Yeah.
that is that's rare.
So rare.
So
Yeah.
that is the only advice I have for anyone is just make sure, like, it seems like they're doing their job. If they're not looking at paperwork, they're not doing anything. They're not working.
Yeah. So if you like if you like group games, if you like the board or card game Dominion, that's the one I
Okay.
was thinking about. I couldn't remember, but I love that game. And it's like, think of yourself as a player in that game, and you get a certain set of cards. Those are your cards. Like, get them together, get them ready,
Yeah.
because how you play them is success. But if you play them out of order, if you play them wrong, you're gonna just fail and fumble every which way. That's gonna be a frustrating experience. But well, Michael, one of the things that I've been asking everybody is like, pick your favorite or something that you find yourself objective, a myth that you find yourself overcoming or discussing or teaching often. Like, what's one of the things that you would teach the listeners here, like a myth about the VA loan or something specifically there?
Well, what I hmm, think what I think people don't know the most is that there's a VA rehab and construction loan. For some reason, they just
Mm,
don't think it exists. Like, oh, I can fix up a house with a VA loan. It's like, yeah, I mean, every loan type you can do it, but that's no fault of theirs, but it's just not information that's out there. So right now I'm probably working on two or three VA one-time closed construction loans, and I've done a few of those this year. But there are some people that don't know that you could use a VA loan to buy to build a house. They just don't know. So I like construction loans, and I like educating people on how that works. It's a process, It's a lot of prep work, and it's a lot of moving parts, and it's a little frustrating for some people. But I think more people should know about that, so they're not stuck buying, like these big box builder brand new homes and communities that nobody wants anyways.
yeah. The rehab loan, to what degree is the veteran in charge of that process?
The actual rehab part, well, they pick their builder.
Yeah.
They pick they're 100% in charge. They pick what they want to do. They pick the builder. They shop around for prices, so they can pick what they want. So absolutely,
Yep.
they're always in control of that. Even the ground up construction, they pick their own land. They pick the builder. They pick who wants to build it. They can pick where the home is on the property, right? And if there's no HOA, they can do whatever they want as long as it's a legit property.
Right. Well, Michael, I really appreciate you kind of joining me here and discussing, sharing your passion, kind of your path through this process. Thank you for being a part of VA, serving the way you have for 5+ years now.
Really.
It's been a pleasure to get to know you and have you involved here. I'm just going to ask you, put you on the spot. Will you be able to make it a summer camp this year?
I don't know. It's always tough because my kids go to camp, and
I know.
the schedule. Plus, I mean, it's so hot in Texas in the summer.
It is. So if you're listening, you're like, summer camp, what's that? I'd love you to check out VetAVASummerCamp.com and just figure out exactly why it's so hot July 16th through the 20th in North Texas. But it's a blast. We spend time on the water.
It's a good time. Yeah, it was fun. um, yeah, shot a 50 caliber rifle, hit a target a quarter mile away. Still have it. It's right here.
You got all good. You got your shell. I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah. Walk away with that shell, man. It's awesome. Well, hey, Michael, thank you so much for being on here. If anybody listening to this wants to talk more with Mr. Michael Wolff, please find him on vetava.com. You can also find him on Facebook. Just look up Michael Wolff with 2 F's. The guy is around. He's got an amazing sense of humor. He's just exceptionally bright and well educated on the loan processes, as you heard, and you can find him anywhere you need him. So thanks so much, Michael, for being on this with me.
Been a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for listening to the VVA podcast, Your Journey Home. We hope this information has been helpful, enjoyable, engaging, supportive. But here's the biggest call to action for you. If you are a veteran, a service member, a family member of the same, and you have earned or have access to the VA home loan eligibility and have questions, please feel free to join us at VetAVA on Facebook. Go to facebook.com, search for the VetAVA group, and you'll find it. Answer some of the questions to enter, and once you do that, you're good to go. If you're a professional, a real estate agent, lender, insurance agent, you know the drill. Well, as a professional, we'd love to have you join the professionals only group. We do all the same information, but at a little bit different scope because, well, of how you're coming into that information to support yourself and the other consumers that you work with. So please join VetAVA on Facebook or VetAVA for Professionals on Facebook. Follow us on TikTok, wherever you can find it. And as always, all the white papers, the resources, the documents, and the training, the free training courses are available at vetava.com. You'll find them all there. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. My email is nathan@vettedva.com. I'm the COO, and I'm ready to help. Glad you tuned in for this episode, and looking forward to bringing you the next one. Take care.